Hello, my name is Susan Almonte, and I'm from Toronto, Ontario, in Canada. I'm married to Nino, and we have 5 children, 2 girls and 3 boys, ages 20, 18, 15, 14, and 7. I was honored to be asked to speak at this Salesian event because my Salesian roots run deep. I have been an active parishioner of St. Benedict Church since my youth, and Nino and I, together with our children, attend Mass there every Sunday, before this present time of isolation when we need to watch Mass on TV. St. Benedict Church, as you may know, is served by the Salesians of Don Bosco. I am also a graduate of Don Bosco High School here in Toronto, so the Salesians have always been a very important part of my life. I teach French and serve as vice principal at a small independent Catholic school named Mary Mother of God School. Don Bosco is a very important patron of the school, and his educational method of teaching with reason, religion, and loving kindness as a preventive method of discipline is part of our formation as teachers at Mary Mother of God School. How grateful I am to have found such a fitting place for me to work and serve in my vocation as teacher. I am deeply honored to participate in this pilgrimage of Mary Help of Christians and to share with you stories of my life with my family that hopefully will resonate in you and help you reflect on how you too can find Jesus in the temple of your life. Reflecting on the theme of the Holy Family, I have always marveled at the fact that God sent his son as a baby, wanting him to be part of a family with a mother and a father. The Holy Family lived a simple life, but very rich in faith, and they lived their faith together with the community around them. Nino and I too have always valued our Catholic faith as essential for our family life. We always wanted our children to feel at home in our parish and to know that they are part of a bigger faith community, which is why, apart from participating in weekly Sunday Mass together, we participate in as many parish events as possible, like our annual Feast of St. Benedict or our Summer Days Day Camp, where Don Bosco's oratory comes to life with such energy and love. Our children participated as campers and then as volunteers as they got older. My eldest daughter, Gloria, was invited to participate in a Salesian leadership retreat. I hope you've heard of that, Salesian leadership retreat. Very powerful experience, which helped her connect her inner faith with the faith lived in our parish community. We are also blessed to have the catechesis of the Good Shepherd offered at our parish. It's a beautiful way for small children to spend time with Jesus and grow in their faith. And we made sure our children were formed in their faith in this enriching process. We also felt it was important to send our children to a good Catholic school to help complement the faith we were nurturing in our home. And Mary Mother of God School was the best place for this. Since I worked there, I was able to see with my own eyes how this school was truly extraordinary. The teachers took their vocation of teaching the whole child very seriously in an atmosphere of faith, joy, and love. We wanted our children to be part of this exciting and spirit-filled school. Despite there being another publicly funded Catholic school just around the corner from our house, I made the sacrifice of driving the kids the 12.5 miles to and from our humble school, which was also my workplace, for the last 24 years. The Holy Family's pilgrimage to Jerusalem, the losing and finding of the child Jesus, and their return home to Nazareth is something I ponder regularly when I reflect on the fifth joyful mystery of the Rosary, the finding of Jesus in the temple. I try to imagine what the days before the finding might have been like for Mary and Joseph. As a mother, whenever we all go out as a family to an amusement park, for example, I have a heightened sense of where everybody is, especially in the crowds, making especially sure that someone is buddied up with the youngest one, while at the same time giving them the freedom to explore on their own. I recall times when my heart stopped and I lost sight of one of them, even if just for a few minutes. And then the big sigh of relief when I finally found the lost child. Imagine losing the Son of God for 3 days. Here you are entrusted with the Savior of the world, and then you can't find him among your group. It's no wonder the finding of Jesus in the temple is a joyful mystery. I always found Jesus' response to his parents when they asked, "Son, why have you done this to us?" slightly cheeky. "Why did you worry? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" But then, in obedience, he followed his parents back to their house, where he grew in body and in wisdom, gaining favor with God and people. Reflecting on this mystery, I learned several things from the Holy Family. 1, the importance of doing the will of the Father. 2, the importance of living family life with Mary as mother and teacher. 3, the importance of trusting always in the goodness and providence of Saint Joseph. And finally, 4, the need for humility. I'll talk first about that first point, the importance of doing the will of the Father. In my late teens and early 20s, I experienced a true deepening of my faith, thanks to the nurturing of the Salesians, but also thanks to my involvement with the Focolare movement, which is a worldwide Catholic lay movement whose spirituality is based on Jesus' prayer for unity, that they may all be one. I understood that God loves me immensely and that he has a plan of love for me. I wasn't just randomly placed on the earth. God has a real plan for me, and this plan would bring me fulfillment and joy. So I tried my best to be attentive to God's will in my life. For example, when I was a student, I understood it was God's will to study, so I tried to study well. Another silly example, when I was driving and the light turned yellow, it was God's will to stop and not step on the gas to get through the light. I have to remind myself about that from time to time. I came to appreciate so much more what I had learned at Don Bosco Secondary about being a Christ-filled member of a family. When Don Bosco taught Dominic Savio, if you want to be a saint, do your ordinary duties in an extraordinary way. That if I learn to do God's will in little things, I will be able to do his will in big things as well, like answering a call to follow him. As I was finishing university, I felt the call to give my life completely to Jesus, and I said yes to whatever vocation God was calling me to, whether it was religious life, married life, or as a single person consecrated to God. But while on a teaching assignment in France, I fell in love. I continued my discernment and in fact received spiritual direction from a very holy Salesian priest in Paris, Father Xavier Thévenot. He helped me understand that God's plan was for me to be married and to raise a family. And so to married life, I said yes. Marriage and family life has its ups and downs, but I know and have personally experienced that God also gives the graces necessary to do what he asks of me and to create a home where as a family, we keep God's ways always before us. Jesus came on earth to do the will of the Father, and he showed me by example how I must pray continually to know his will and to ask for the strength to live his will. Jesus' time in the temple was a time of preparation for the life and ministry that lay before him. Jesus followed his parents from the temple in Jerusalem back to his family home in Nazareth, where in the domestic church, he learned from his mother and father. As a boy, for example, how to find joy in doing God's will for him. Being responsive to God's will is not always easy for my husband Nino and me, but it's a goal that unites us and guides us and helps us to grow as a couple and as a family. As parents, we realize that it is our God-given privilege and responsibility to do what Joseph and Mary did, to help our children, even at a young age, to know and desire to do the will of the Father. For example, at their hockey games, they should play their hardest. At practice, listen carefully to the coach. Finish their homework to the best of their ability. When deciding what to study at university, be aware of the gifts God has given and try to be attentive to where he is asking you to use them. I would like to relate this to what we are all living in the present time during this coronavirus pandemic, staying home and self-isolating. To prevent the spread of this deadly coronavirus is God's will for us right now. It's an act of love that we make for each other, even though it is very hard at times. Personally, I was given an extra challenge to deal with at the same time. Just when the stay-at-home orders were put in place due to the pandemic, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, which spread extensively to my liver. I was very surprised by this because I have always lived a healthy lifestyle. I never smoked, I don't drink alcohol, and I ate good food, never forgetting the vegetables, and cancer is not present at all in any of my family members. But upon receiving my diagnosis for cancer, I did not panic. The Holy Family also had to face frightening things in their lives, and they faced them with faith and optimism, and I knew we would do the same. I received a special grace to accept this cancer as an opportunity to recognize God pointing me in a new direction in His holy and His loving plan for my life. I decided that if God permits this illness to happen, then I must accept it too. Actually, I draw great inspiration and strength from Blessed Chiara Luce Badano, who is a young Italian saint. She would be my age right now had she not died of cancer when she was 19. She died at a time when I was growing deeper in my faith, and I remember asking young Chiara Luce to intercede for me to be faithful to God's will for me and to accept the radical choice to follow Jesus' example of loving every neighbor. Now that I too am battling cancer, Chiara Luce is a shining example of how to keep on loving in spite of the difficulties and how to find Jesus in new ways when my body seems to have lost Him. While I'm prepared to live God's will in this new direction my life is taking, I also recognize that not just I, but my whole family will need help carrying this cross. So when I received the diagnosis, I emailed all my prayerful friends asking them to kindly remember me in their prayers. In return, I committed to offering my suffering for all those affected by COVID-19. The response to my email was overwhelming. I received messages of hope and encouragement from all across the globe, from so many friends, even those I hadn't been in touch with for a very long time. Immediately, I felt carried on the wings of their prayers and that I wasn't alone in this fight against cancer. This was an important experience of living faith that I shared with my family, and we saw clearly how blessed we are to be part of a larger family of faith as we help one another in times of need. I imagine that Jesus learned from the example of Mary and Joseph how to keep his heart in tune to the will of the Father. Jesus trusted in the promise of God's faithful love in all things. So this lesson from the Holy Family about doing the will of the Father in all things, is especially in times when times are difficult. It's truly the joy of this mystery. On to my second point. Number 2, the importance of living family life with Mary as mother and teacher. Mother Mary is a source of great comfort to me. Just as she stood in faith by Jesus at his hour of greatest need, I know she is standing by me and my family. Before cancer treatment began, I was having a lot of trouble sleeping through the night because of pain and discomfort. So I would just get out of bed and go to the living room where we have a small shelf with the statue of Our Lady of Lourdes, and I would pray the rosary in the middle of the night while everybody in the house was sleeping. In spite of the pain that I was experiencing, I treasured these intimate moments with my Heavenly Mother where I could share with her my fears. I didn't really know what was happening at the time, and give thanks for the blessings received. In that silence, I experienced Our Lady's great love for me, as well as her motherly protection, wrapping me in her great mantle. Somehow, being in Mary's company gave me confidence that with her, everything was going to be okay, and that she would keep me faithful to God's loving plan for me. How did my family react to this new challenge? How are we recognizing the presence of Jesus Mary, and Joseph in our domestic church during this chapter of our family life, my first decision was to be totally open about my sickness with my family. So as I was undergoing test after test, before receiving the final diagnosis of cancer, I kept them informed about what was going on. The first thing that was discovered was that I had lesions on my liver, all over my liver, which my doctor said may have come from a primary cancerous source in another part of my body. Of course, my two eldest daughters, Gloria and Aurora, ran straight to the internet to get informed using the Canadian Cancer Society's website, sifting through the various stages of cancer, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4, which this last stage describing my symptoms perfectly. Lesions on the liver, spread there from a primary source of cancer, accompanied by pain in the right shoulder, which I had been suffering from for months, and fever. They were gripped with fear, fearful that I was going to die at any moment. They broke down in tears. Gloria rarely cries, so when she privately shared her fears with me, I held her tight and told her that in this situation, like in every other family circumstance, we needed to put everything in Jesus' hands and to trust in God's plan. At the same time, we'd follow the treatment plan that the doctors would give me and pray that it works. My 16-year-old son, Augustine, who doesn't say much, typical of his age, told his sisters, "I see things differently. If Mom dies, she will go straight to heaven, where she will be happy." This did not help his sisters feel any better. My youngest two sons, Max and Xavier, they would just hug me, and they still do. They hug me every day, and they tell me that they love me. The 7-year-old sometimes just hugs my leg so as not to cause pain to my abdomen. My husband was very hurt, and for the longest time, he could not even utter the word cancer. He hated to be a bystander watching me suffer. But we had a very intimate moment at the hospital where the tests were being conducted, and we looked each other in the eyes and held each other's hands and said, "We are going to fight this together, entrusting everything to God, in whom all things are possible." Yes, cancer has invaded my body, but my body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. I can dwell on the cancer that is inside of me, or I can live in the presence of God who also dwells in me. My choice to ponder God's presence dwelling in the temple of my body is an opportunity for me to unite my sufferings to the sufferings of Christ. Mary, desolate at the foot of the cross, inspires me to keep loving and to keep trusting in God's loving plan. Our family's habit of praying together over the years had taken root in the hearts of our children, and the fruits were becoming more and more visible. Gloria, the eldest, proposed that we pray the rosary as a family every night for my healing. We always pray together, usually bedtime prayers or grace before meals, but we only prayed the rosary once in a blue moon. I was very touched that my daughter knew right away who to turn to in our great need of help. Mother Mary, the help of Christians. Praying the rosary together has been such a gift for me. It's always been a dream. I had always dreamed of praying the rosary more often with my family, and now we were actually doing it. This forced isolation has removed the busyness in our lives and has given us the time to do things we thought we had no time for. It's helped us recognize what's important and to reconsider our priorities. Now, as a family, we are asking Mary to teach us, to guide us, and to intercede for us through this most powerful prayer, the Rosary, particularly in this time of need. It's also an opportunity for us to pray for other intentions as we hear of so many people affected by COVID-19. As Mary, Jesus, and Joseph pray together as a family, we turn to them in a special way to receive their love and strength for each one of us. And it is so beautiful to have the Holy Family present to our family in this way. The third point I wanted to talk about was St. Joseph, trusting always in his goodness and providence. In our domestic church, there are many times when the figure of Joseph was especially important to keep us growing as a family of faith, but I will relate two of them. The first was when we got pregnant unexpectedly for the fourth and fifth times, and the second is my current bout with cancer. Our third child, Augustine, was only 9 months old when Nino and I found out that we were pregnant again with our fourth child, Maximilian. Max was a totally unexpected pregnancy. We were already having a tough time with the children outnumbering the parents, and we did not feel emotionally ready for another child. We were also afraid about our already stretched finances. There was no doubt that we would welcome this unexpected gift into our family, but it was an act of faith. It challenged our marriage, and in the end, it made us stronger. And our family is richer because Max is part of it. Besides, as Augustine and Max grew, they always had each other to play with. I realized how this situation was not so different from Joseph's situation when he found out that Mary was pregnant. Joseph, like us, had to face an unexpected pregnancy, but he faced it with faith and courage, and he grew in wisdom and grace by accepting God's will for him and for Mary and for Jesus too. Maybe it was this act of trust in God, especially when God does not seem to make sense, that prepared Joseph to be a good parent for Jesus, teaching him by example how to become a man whose life is focused on doing God's will for him. With our fifth child, it was a completely different story. At the time, everything in life seemed to be settling. My 4 children were all attending Mary Mother of God School full-time. I was teaching there, and I was helping to pioneer a high school program at our school, finally teaching French at the level I was trained to teach, at the high school level. Our children were busy with many after-school activities like hockey and swimming. Things were running very smoothly. Then God decided to shake things up a little. While visiting the doctor because of an unusual cycle, my doctor suggested that we check for pregnancy, and sure enough, I was expecting baby number 5. I was completely dumbfounded, yet in my astonishment and surprise, I thought I would burst with joy. I really love babies. Totally convinced that I would not have any more children. I had recently given away every single baby thing I possessed: cribs, clothes, strollers, toys, to new mothers in my circles or contact. I was 42 years old after all. I was so honored that God chose me to be a mother again, and I trusted that he knew best what my family needed. And Saint Joseph interceded and provided for everything: a crib, stroller, baby clothes, even a video monitor so I could watch our little baby as he slept. I never had that for the other 4. Our children were over the moon with excitement about this new addition to the family. With all the iPod or iPhone videos taken of our baby Xavier, there must be enough to produce several feature films. My daughter Aurora recently summed it up like this: Xavier is the best thing that happened to our family, and I completely agree. This other area where I seek St. Joseph to guide my family in faith is in our way of dealing with my cancer. Now that I am undergoing chemotherapy treatment, my immunity is very low, and I need to be extremely careful not to expose myself to people who are ill. My husband is very afraid to go out in public, for example, to shop for groceries, for fear of catching a virus that might infect me. So we needed to find another solution to feed the family without going out of the house. In comes St. Joseph, the provider. As friends learned of my diagnosis, they immediately offered all kinds of help, from shopping for groceries to picking up our prescriptions at the drugstore. And my faith friends here in Toronto have been providing daily dinners for our family to help ease the stress of the situation. These concrete acts of love and generosity have been such a powerful witness to all of us. Still daily, we find bags of necessities on our front porch, sometimes with no indication of the kind provider. I feel so strongly that St. Joseph has his hand in all of this, providing for our family as he provided for his. Indeed, in the goodness and generosity of others, my family and I are finding Jesus. The fourth point I wanted to talk about Like the Holy Family, I need humility. Another lesson I learned from the Holy Family through their pilgrimage to Jerusalem and the story of losing and finding of Jesus in the temple, it's humility. It's been a humbling experience for me to allow others to help me, because I have always been in the position of serving others and doing things without asking for help, such as cooking for the family, cleaning, helping with schoolwork, and many other regular household chores. But the chemotherapy treatments wiped me out, and now I need to allow others to do things in my place. My husband and children have stepped up to the plate, doing all sorts of chores that I used to take care of. It has been a beautiful experience to see my children growing in wisdom and grace as they respond generously to our family's time of need. My son Augustine said to me, "Mom, I never realized how much stuff you do." They also help me get out of the house for daily walks, just because I have to get moving. And it's very important to exercise a little bit. So they help me in this way. The older children now have finished their university courses, and they're able to assist the younger ones focus on their studies just to complete this academic year. Nevertheless, as family life goes, matters continue to arise and need to be addressed. Hopefully this next experience will, resonate with you. I'm sure many of us are experiencing this. We know the love shared in the communion of the members of the Holy Family, it continues to be for me a source of inspiration as to how to deal with matters that come up in my family. So here's the final example. During our quarantine time, despite the schoolwork being assigned to my 3 boys who are still in virtual school, I noticed the boys spending too much time playing video games. Our family rule that does not permit video games during the school week needed to be relaxed since the boys were not actually in school. But it seemed to me that they were taking advantage of being home. Once the schoolwork was completed, they thought it would be okay to play video games for the rest of the day. Somehow they forgot about the 1.5-hour limit per day rule. So I called a family meeting. I wanted to discuss the issue openly with everyone, preparing myself to listen to what my sons had to say too. They told me that everybody is playing video games. Well, I know this is true, but I wanted to encourage my children to be more Christ-like, to consider doing other things that involve reaching out to our neighbor, just as so many people have reached out to us. I suggested concrete examples of good things they could do, like calling their grandfather since he's all alone, FaceTime their cousins just to see how they are doing, organize things around the house such as their toys and Lego creations, or now that the weather is starting to get a bit nicer, rollerblading or riding bikes while keeping a safe distance from others. Taking the neighbor's dog out for a walk. That has actually now become one of Max's favorite activities. Explaining that video games were not bad in themselves, I hoped my sons would understand the importance of balancing game time with reaching out to others. Having this open and honest family discussion helped us to listen to each other's perspective, allowing us to work toward a solution together. This time of quarantine has been a source of many blessings, a time to model our family life after that of the Holy Family, deepening our prayer lives and living our faith as part of a community, trying our best to do God's will instead of our own, entrusting our fears and worries to the powerful intercession of our Mother Mary, trusting in the providence of Saint Joseph, the caregiver of families, and living with humility all that God asks of us. I pray that as you and I participate in this great Triduum in honor of Mary, Help of Christians, our families may grow more deeply in our faith. May Mary, together with Jesus and Joseph, always find a ready welcome in my home and yours, to be a source of strength for us to courageously face the present moment of our lives.